Ooh. Welcome, beautiful souls. Welcome back to another live as we discuss Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Whether you're joining me live or you're joining me as part of a replay, whenever you're joining me, I'm so happy that you're here. If you're new here, I'm Brittany Starks. I am your manifesting mentor. I'm not a coach, I'm not a guru, but I'm a woman who is demonstrating this work day in and day out so that you can see what it looks like to embody this work on a deep level. So, if that sounds good to you, you are in the right place. We've been walking through this book chapter by chapter, and tonight we're actually reflecting on the first three parts of chapter 7, which goes over heart intelligence. And so tonight we're covering parts 1 through 3. And if this is your first time tuning in, you can catch up with all the previous lives on my YouTube channel. It's in order from introduction all the way up until this chapter. It includes all of my Tuesday and Friday night lives where I dive deeper into each of the parts of the chapters. And there's a playlist linked on both my YouTube channel and over on TikTok. Just tap the link in my bio to find it very easily. So that's a little housekeeping. But in the meantime, I'll be sharing highlights from these readings, my personal reflections, and answering some key questions from those of you on this journey with me. So y'all know I don't like to waste no time. We're not gonna wait for the stragglers. Y'all will get here when y'all get here. I love y'all, mean it. Part 1, we're gonna start with part 1, heart intelligence and the heart bridge. And as you know, I always go over my key reflections from each of these parts. So starting with heart intelligence and the heart bridge. So Dr. Joe shares in this part of chapter 7 that the heart is not just a physical organ. It has its own intelligence. And he even goes a lot more deeper into this, I believe, in Blessings of the Energy Center, which is chapter 4, where he talks about how every energy center has its own intelligence. But the heart, he says, is really at the core of the matter because um, it's the one organ that even when it's removed from the body, the physical body, it still can pump for a good while without being connected to the entire vessel. Crystal Collection, hi, welcome. He said, you just want to say my teachings have truly helped you to begin to uncover those beliefs that you've outgrown from generations before you. Thank you. You're welcome. I'm so glad to be able to share because this has been life-changing for me. I'm just happy that platforms like YouTube make it easy to connect with tribe, people who want to do the work. So welcome, Crystal Collection 222. Love that number, by the way. But yes, so Dr. Joe explains that the heart is its own intelligent center. He says that it sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. And that's something that I don't know how you grew up learning science, but I learned science in a way that made me believe that the brain is everything. Obviously, if your heart starts beating, you're no longer here. But I always thought that it was the other way around, that the brain is sending signals to the heart. But in this chapter, we learned that the heart is sending more signals to the brain, which means that when you are experiencing life, if you're in a state of fight or flight, if you are dysregulated in your nervous system, the first organ or energy center to get that information is the heart. Whatever emotions you're feeling, the heart feels it first. Then it sends signals to the brain, which sends signals to everything and every other organ in the body. So he says this heart-brain connection forms what he calls the bridge, where thoughts and feelings can finally move into coherence. And you're able to move into coherence when you understand the process of how to drop into those elevated emotions. We talked a lot about that in the past few chapters, why elevated emotions are so important to this work, because we now understand that the heart has its own intelligence, and the heart is really running the show because it's the seat of everything that we desire. I did a video earlier today where I talked about how you could desire a thing, but if your heart doesn't feel safe with it, meaning if your nervous system doesn't feel like it could be at home in homeostasis with whatever you're calling in, it's not going to be that easy to manifest. It's not going to be easy for it to just be in your experience because your body's rejecting it essentially. It doesn't feel safe. It's in survival mode. And so we're learning how to pull ourselves out of that mode to get into the heart and condition our bodies to feel safe with whatever it is we're calling in. So he says that coherence is basically just alignment between your internal state and the quantum field. In other words, the quantum field, it's a field of infinite potentials and infinite possibilities. And as long as you are not contradicting it with your energy, whatever it is that you may desire is possible for you. But if you're contradicting it with your energy, because your body has its own memory and it's remembering the stories, the pain, everything you needed to, or everything that you learned while you were in survival, then it won't feel safe with what you're calling in unless you do what Dr. Joe is teaching in chapter 6, and I think chapter 5, which is reconditioning the body to a new mind. Getting your body on board to feel safe by practicing the emotions of your future. And that's what we're constantly reiterating in every chapter. He says it in a different way. He introduces a new element, but he's essentially saying the same message. Feel the feelings of your wish fulfilled. Feel the feelings of your future now, before the conditions change, before the chronic illness or pain goes away, before the relationship is mended. Feel what it would feel like, because you're teaching your heart that whatever you want that outcome to be is okay. It's going to be safe. Your heart only knows what's familiar. Your body only knows what's familiar. And so if you've never experienced that thing before, then it's going to feel foreign. And our bodies don't know what to do when it's in the unknown. It kicks and screams for familiarity. And so it will fight you to stay the same. And so we're doing all of this work so that we can condition our bodies to feel at harmony and at peace, whole and at one with our manifestation, with whatever it is we're desiring, whether it's health, improved relationships, new opportunities. You want to make your body feel safe with whatever it is you're calling in. So for me personally, reading this part of the book made me look at my meditations in a completely new way. So lately I've been tuning into my heart center, and I've been being more intentional about bringing my awareness to my heart center. And when I do this, I find myself feeling more grounded. I've always blessed the energy centers. I've done the whole 8 chakras, including the Ka, which is 16 inches above your head, as Dr. Joe explains. But I think when I was doing it the whole time, I gave every energy center equal attention. But I feel like by reading this book again for the 3rd time, by the way, and just really being intentional as I go through each chapter, reading chapter 7 reminded me to tune into my heart, because it's the seat of all of the emotions that my body has experienced, even the ones that got stuck from trauma and disappointments. And when I'm really in tune, or just give myself the space to be in that heart center, I start feeling a lot of that, whatever used to be stuck, get released. So it really grounds me. And it feels like I'm not grasping for anything anymore. Like I don't have to chase anything anymore. I just allow myself to be. And I've been focusing on the emotions of what it would feel like to be one with my deepest desires. And, for me, my deepest desires would give me a deeper sense of freedom, a deeper sense of relief. When you are a hard worker and you're always showing up for other people, sometimes you forget what it feels like to just take a break and relief, right? So many people I know, I feel like a lot of light workers, a lot of people who do this work tend to be those who overextend themselves in a lot of areas of their lives, and sometimes forget that the healer needs healing, or sometimes the person that gives so much relief to other people needs some relief sometimes. So for me, I'm calling on emotions of freedom, of relief, of gratitude, right? Because I'm very grateful for the life that I already have. I have 0 complaints. But at the same time, I know there's so much more for me. And I know, because I feel this desire to expand, right? And so it's taken my practice to a whole new level to really focus on my heart center, because it's me being honest with my emotions, and not for the sake of shoring up old stories that don't serve me. I don't do it for that sake. I do it for the sake of just being honest with how I feel. And then I let the feeling or the emotion pass by, especially if it doesn't serve me. So if I'm angry, I'm not suppressing my anger. I'm tuning into my heart and I'm saying, wow, I feel angry. And the more I linger in my heart area with that honesty of how I'm feeling, then the things start coming up as to why I feel angry. And when I face whatever that is, that's how I'm able to let it go. We're not able to free ourselves from the pain of the past until we're able to face it from a space of love, be honest. And then from there, when you realize the story doesn't serve you anymore, you can lovingly let it go. And so that's how it's been able to help me take my meditations to the next level. And it's like my body at that point is no longer looking for evidence anymore, right? Because my energy already knows that once I let go of whatever was an obstacle for me, I'm free, right? I can feel the feelings of my future because I'm feeling it now. I don't feel weighed down like I used to, right? And that is a different kind of trust. It's a different kind of calm. And that's what I consider true heart intelligence, when you're able to move from that space of authenticity and just allow yourself to finally feel the freedom, the relief, and the gratitude for life. And so I would say, if you've had any reflections from this section, please feel free to share it in the comments. I don't know if everybody's all caught up, because sometimes I'll drop the chapters and it comes fast and furious, guys. But I did have a few questions that came in from part one. This person says, what does it feel like when you're in heart coherence? I would say it feels like stillness, but like in motion, if that makes any sense. So it feels like your thoughts and your emotions are in alignment. That's what I would say. It feels like you don't have conflict with what you're desiring, or like you're not contradicting your desires with your thoughts and your emotions. Everything just feels really aligned. Your body starts to relax. You have a deeper sense of awareness. And I feel like gratitude just flows more easily when you're in this state of coherence. So that's how you'll know when it's easy for you to slip into states of gratitude, because you can be grateful for the moment regardless of what you're experiencing. That's how you'll know you're in brain or heart coherence. And by the way, I want to say that you would feel those states even if nothing on the outside changed. So like, let's say you just got in an argument with somebody, for example, which might have dysregulated your nervous system, but you want to do a quick meditation to really, number one, re-regulate your nervous system and just take a deep breather. So you'll get into that state. Dr. Joe explains in all of his meditations, really, but also the Heart Math Institute has a 5-minute heart coherence meditation that really allows you to tap into this by breathing into the heart center, putting your focus and awareness on the heart. And as you breathe deeply in and out, you start to focus on something or someone that you're grateful for. For me, it's my 2-year-old nephew. He's the cutest baby I know, and he brings me so much joy easily, right? I say stick to babies and pets or just lighthearted subjects, because you can feel gratitude for those pretty easily. And as you're breathing into that heart center, you'll start to notice your body starts to relax. You feel super aware, and those elevated emotions start to make everything feel better. You feel lighter. And that's how you'll know you're in brain and heart coherence. Now, if it's a subject that agitated you, as I was explaining, you drop into the heart, you do that with something you're grateful for a little while, then turn your attention and awareness to that subject that agitated you. And what you'll notice is you'll have a clearer perspective on it, and you'll be less, whatever that emotion was that you were feeling that agitated you, you'll be less agitated, and you'll be able to drop into brain and heart coherence on that subject as well. So start with something that's lighthearted, that you could easily feel gratitude for. Shift your awareness to that subject that's a problem for you. And then what you'll notice is that you'll start to feel more clarity on that subject. I hope that helps. It definitely helps me, but that's one of my methods. Question number 2 says, what if you feel disconnected from your heart or you find it hard to drop in? First of all, if I'm honest, I probably felt more disconnected from my heart until I started reading this book again. Because, like I said, I was blessing all of my energy centers. I wasn't giving my heart special attention and care, even though I read this book before. But I feel like the student, what does they say? The teacher appears when the student is ready. So maybe I wasn't ready for this part of it, this level of my transformation. And so now, through practice, is what I would say. Practice is what's going to get you there, because since I've been practicing more so this week, especially with chapter 7 being top of mind, I've noticed that I've had more intense meditations with more energy focused on my heart center. I feel so much better physically. Um, my thoughts are less clouded. I don't go back and forth a lot on topics that really mean something to me, meaning, when we talk about manifestation, as it relates to manifestations, I'm not looking and checking the 3D for whether or not things have changed. Even if, if I were healing something, for example, I wouldn't be scanning my body wondering why it hasn't changed yet. Even if I felt sensations or whatever, I would still know that I am well and all is happening for me. And, through my practice, I'm able to just accept my reality, but also still have a lot of trust. And that's what I say. If you just do the 5-minute heart and brain coherence activity or any one of Dr. Joe's meditations, preferably blessings of the energy center, and really put your attention and awareness on the heart center, breathe slowly, recall a memory that, can bring you gratitude or joy and love. And Dr. Joe says that the emotion is the door, but the breath is the way. So if you breathe into your heart center, feel that gratitude, feel those emotions, those elevated emotions, you'll start to feel lighter. So it is a practice. It's not something that you should feel like you're doing it wrong if you don't feel like you're dropping it into the heart. But the more you practice, the more you'll start to be aware of when you are doing it, and you'll realize that it just comes with practice. It just comes with practice. So part two is actually, part two, we talked about homeostasis, coherence, and resilience. And he also talked about something called the heart rate variability, which is the heart-brain communication, basically the measurements of how we're able to know that we are in brain and heart coherence. And it's something that he's been doing for years now at his workshops. It's part of the science that he's uncovering for a lot of people in the science community to understand the benefits of meditation through HRV, how meditation is helping to change our brains, how it's also lengthening our lifespan. The telomeres are growing from people who meditate regularly, which basically is the precursor for how long you are able to live. So not only are we improving health, obviously, if you can keep your nervous system as regulated as possible in 2025, you are doing damn good, okay? Because every time I turn on the television or I click onto social media, there is something that will help you dysregulate your nervous system at every flick of the thumb, okay? So you're doing very well for showing up here. I will say that alone, but also just doing this work. So some of the key talking points from part two is he introduces the importance of homeostasis, and that's basically your body's ability to return to balance. So stress is a very normal part of our existence, especially in 2025 with technology. And if you live in the Western world like me, capitalism, we know all the things that are happening. It's so easy to be knocked back and forth in and out of states of stress. And that's not a problem. It's only a problem when you live in a state of chronic stress, meaning you don't give your body an opportunity to shift back into homeostasis, back into balance. And so you got to think of one of my best friends, she's actually a marine biologist. And so she studies the ocean. And one of the unique things about the ocean is that the environment in the water has to be at a certain state of homeostasis for certain species to exist, for certain plants, any kind of living organisms to exist. And when you got things like pollution and climate change happening, a lot of those ecosystems under the water get shifted out of balance and no longer are in homeostasis. Therefore, a lot of things are becoming extinct. You get bleaching of the coral reef, so on and so forth. Well, I liken our bodies to that, because the more I learn about our bodies, I realize we're not very different from the ocean. We need balance in our bodies, even down to our guts. I'm learning so much about gut microbiome and oral microbiome, where your mouth and your gut need healthy and, a good mixture of bacteria. And when your internal environment is not in homeostasis, sometimes your body could be feeding the bad gut bacteria, and the good gut bacteria might be dying off, which leads to imbalance and digestive disorders and a whole slew of other health conditions. But I brought that up because homeostasis is what we're able to reach by doing practices like meditation and breath work. So we're learning how to basically recondition our bodies from being in chronic states of fight or flight, always reacting to the world around us, our circumstances, the people in our lives, giving all of our vital energy and attention, the very same creative energy that we need for our bodies to learn how to return back to homeostasis. We freely give it away to everything and everyone in our lives, and it's not serving us well. And that's basically why I ended up doing this work. The other thing he talks about is chronic stress, obviously, how it disrupts the balance and creates emotional dissonance, which is the opposite of harmony, right? So instead of a harmonious orchestra, it's a cacophony. It's like the signals from the heart start going haywire. It starts sending haywire signals to the brain, and then the brain starts sending haywire signals throughout the body. So now, instead of your body functioning in a harmonious way, your body, all different organs and cells and atoms are getting sporadic messages, because like he said, when the heart and the brain aren't functioning well, you aren't functioning well. And so you are being affected by stress. And again, he introduces heart rate variability, which is a measure of coherence. So he's able to now measure how well are we doing by doing practices like this? How good of a steward are we being by managing our energy, learning how to recondition our bodies to a new mind? We're able to measure that with the HRV. And this is why we're paying attention to Dr. Joe, because he's giving us the science. It's no longer woo-woo to say that, hey, I'm going to go meditate and sit in meditation for 45 minutes. It's not woo-woo anymore. Now we're realizing that there's actual science behind every single time you decide to sit and meditate. Even whether you're doing it with your eyes open or your eyes closed, they all work. But he says that the heart signals to the brain whether or not you are in alignment. And that's what's most important about chapter 7 thus far, is that we're able to know just from dropping into the heart and scanning our bodies and seeing, hey, where am I at with my thoughts? Because if I am not in alignment, meaning, I can tell when I'm regulated or dysregulated. Drop into that heart and you will know. So for this part spoke to me because it spoke to the version of me that used to always be on, right? Always planning, always fixing, always problem solving, figuring it out. But that was always just survival. Because as I mentioned, those who are always the fixers, the planners, the figure outers are usually the people who bite off more than they can chew, right? Like you do good, but you don't realize that it has a cost to it. At what cost? And so my nervous system was just trying to stay in control. And so learning about heart rate variability reminded me that my internal balance is way, 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 way more important than any external checklist. And when I tell you I take this so seriously, like I don't make a move without checking in with myself. Because Dr. Joe helped me understand how important it is to put your coherence first. He is. Like these people that are creating miracles for themselves, healing from chronic illness and pain, they had to learn the very same thing that I'm saying. And they had to take themselves seriously. They had to say, you know what? Rather than being right in this argument with the person that I'm used to arguing with, I'm going to put my coherence first. I'm going to make sure that I'm regulated. I'm going to make sure I check in with my nervous system. I'm going to make sure that I'm not unnecessarily putting my energy and attention onto something that's not serving me. Right? I'm making sure that I'm not contributing more to my stress load unnecessarily. And again, stress is normal. This isn't about living in utopia where it's always kumbaya, you're never going to be faced with anything. What it's about is giving yourself the tools to learn how to deal with chaos so that things can be chaotic out there, but you learn how to create harmony within here. And then from there, you will be the person to think most clearly rather than, now granted, I will say this, not every situation requires you to have to sit and think about it. If you got to be in fight or flight, there's a reason for it. There's a reason for that mechanism. It's a reason that it works, obviously. But in a lot of day-to-day situations and circumstances that we give that kind of energy to, it's not necessary. You get a bill in the mail and you might be having financial issues. Your body's responding and reacting as if you're running from a lion, tiger, or bear in the jungle when it's just a piece of paper that says bill due. And we treat it as if it's a life or death situation because when you're in survival, that's what it feels like. It feels like life and death. So I take this part very seriously in my journey, and I'm learning that it makes a huge difference. So when I slow down and I choose presence, when I let my breath lead and let my heart settle, it's not that I'm being passive. I'm just learning how to be magnetic to the answers that I need in that moment. So I'm not allowing myself to be reactive. I'm allowing myself to be a divine channel for what's right for me. And Dr. Joe talks about that all the time, that when you surrender in meditation, you give your desires and that vision and the emotions, you surrender it to the divine and you ask it to bring forth whatever you need in a way that's right for you. Because we all understand in a particular way. We all, are on our own individual paths with our own lessons. So you want it to bring it to you in a way that's right for you, and it does. But put that relationship with your higher self, with your divine vessel, first and foremost. I'm telling you, it'll make a difference. So someone from my Q&A question submitter, someone said, what can I do to increase my HRV or heart and brain coherence? Simple daily practices like what we're doing here, reading books like Becoming Supernatural, challenging yourself to do a meditation a day, even if it's 5 to 10 minutes, slow breathing, the heart coherence, the 5-minute heart coherence from the Heart Math Institute, Wim Hof's breathing technique. These are all things that help you bring your body back into homeostasis, especially after prolonged bouts of stress. So any of Dr. Joe's meditations, Blessings of the Energy Center, always does it for me. They all support HRV, heart rate variability, AKA heart and brain coherence. So just think of it as like emotional fitness. So the more reps you get in, the better off you'll be, and you build it over time. Hope that helps. Another question says, how can I tell the difference between living in survival and living in coherence? Ooh, that's a good one. Well, when you're in survival mode, everything, your emotions just feel really urgent. And that's why we're so reactive. Like we don't even think. When you're in survival mode, you just react. You react. But when you're in coherence, there's not as there's not as much tension in your body. When I'm in reactive mode, when I'm anxious, I can feel the tension literally in the pit of my stomach. And the opposite is when you're in coherence. You're able to feel relief. You're able to feel a lightness about whatever subject you're thinking about. You're not as tense about it, and you're not as reactive, and you're not obviously experiencing those, I don't even like to call them lower emotions. They're just emotions. They're just feelings. But anxiety, depression, those kind of things, those obviously aren't elevated emotions. So if you're feeling that, you're not living in coherence. You're living in survival still. And so For me, coherence is about creating space between the thing that's the stimulus or the trigger and your response. So you give yourself space to actually process, make sure that you try to bring back some sense of coherence, alignment, nervous system regulation, and then you respond. So you feel more safe, you feel present, and you feel aligned without needing to chase anything. And that's how I say that you'll know you're not living in survival, but you're living in coherence. You're more, as Neville Goddard would say, you live as if you are in the wish fulfilled. You have that sense of relief. You have that sense of knowing. You're calmer. You're able to function with more clarity. You have more awareness about you. You're not reactive, and you're not feeling like you're in fight or flight. Hope that helps. Ooh. So we are going to move into part 3, which talks a lot about the benefits of coherence and the effects of chronic stress. And we've all already kind of gone over this, but again, that's what I like about Dr. Joe. He's very much knowledgeable in how we learn as humans, and it's through repetition. He will say the same thing a bajillion times in different ways until you get it. And we all learn very differently. So I think that makes him a wonderful teacher, because he goes over the same topics. And for my talking points, I wrote down, he talked about how coherence enhances immune function. So basically, when we're in coherence, we know that our bodies produce chemical reactions. He says that emotions are actually chemical reactions. And those chemical reactions are actually beneficial for our immune system when we linger more in elevated emotions, or at least homeostasis. So he says not only does it improve immune function, but it improves emotional regulation, nervous system regulation, and it also sharpens your intuition. And he says that chronic stress obviously is the opposite of that. It creates dissonance, it weakens the body. And when you are stressed, you feel weaker. We all know that. We've all been there from time to time, right? And it also sabotages your creative energy. So chronic stress is the opposite of anything creative. You feel more creative when you have that sense of relief and freedom. Because if you're in survival mode, that is not the time to create. You are not you are not in a creative flow when you feel like you are in fight or flight. And he says also that the field responds to the signal that you are broadcasting moment to moment. So stress is the signal that is very mixy matchy. It's basically a scrambled signal when you're in chronic stress. And so when you're in those elevated emotions, coherence, it's a very clear signal. And this is what people talk about when they, experience miraculous or miracles that happen as a result of their meditations, is because they finally were able to get beyond the fight or flight survival emotions of the day, of their circumstances, of their relationships, and tune into nothingness, right? And feel safe just being in their bodies. And then from there, whatever your vision is, whatever that creative, expansive, imaginative thing that you have in mind for yourself, you can really get creative with it once you feel safe, once you feel like you are in a state of homeostasis, that you are regulated, you're back in safety, basically. So he says that elevated emotion in the heart aligns your energy, and it draws the future to you. So he literally says this in so many ways, that the heart is the magnet. Once you can tap into gratitude, love, joy, as you're clearly focused on whatever that intention is, he says that is the magnet. So the thoughts are your signal that you send out, and the heart is the magnet that draws it back to you. But remember, when the heart is not in homeostasis, when it's not in coherence, there are very incoherent signals. In other words, if you don't feel safe with that thing that you're calling in, the heart doesn't feel safe, it's not drawing it to you, at least not yet. It's still a potential that exists, but it's not a tangible for your body, at least, until you can get your body on board to feel safe with it. And this is why we practice. This is why we do these meditations often, because it's a literal reconditioning. I liken our bodies to an untrained puppy, a puppy that's never had home training. And so we know how cute and cuddly they are. But baby, if you get that puppy in your house, it's going to poop and pee everywhere. It's going to chew on things until you learn to train it, right? So your body is the same way. It's been running the show and you didn't even know, because you didn't know how important it was for you to be a steward of your mind and your body. But now we know the stakes that we're playing with. We know what's at stake if we don't do this. We got examples of it all around us, but we also have examples of people doing the work, and we have examples of people being supernatural. And we're on our way in our practice of being supernatural by showing up for ourselves. So for me, reading this part reminded me of how deeply we've normalized stress, the overthinking, the doubt, the chasing, the grasping, just being desperate for change. And I get it. I've been there. I'm human, right? But when I tune into my heart during my meditation, I just remember how good it feels to not need anything, to just be, right? Because I could want all the things, and material things are great. They make the quality of life better. They do, right? But they're not everything. They're not. And you'll get that thing and then you'll be on to the next. Like that's how we're wired. And just when I tune into my heart center, I'm able to recognize just how important it is to just be, and just be in the frequency of the answer, be in the frequency of the present moment, the gift of the present moment, because it is a generous gift. There's literally infinite potentials that exist when right now. But we are only tuned into one of the infinite, or a small, teeny tiny fraction of the infinite. Even just by showing up right here, right now, there are infinite things you could be doing, but you're here. And that's a small, teeny tiny fraction of a fraction. So for me, I found that just being more patient, being more grateful, being more surrendered. Some people liken that to just giving up, but I don't see it like that at all. I feel like putting a lot of negative attention onto something that I desire by focusing on the lack of it, that's not productive. You know, just because you're thinking about it all day long doesn't mean you're being productive, especially if you're not thinking of thoughts of wholeness or thoughts of fulfillment. If you're thinking about the lack of something, that's not productive at all. I'd rather think loving thoughts and then let the thought go than to pine over something that I really want all day long, asking myself, where is it? Why isn't it here yet? And just being stuck in the stories of the past. So for me, that's not giving up. That's the emotional signal that is actually required to allow it to come in, to allow yourself to feel safe when you don't need it. Because when you don't need it, you're not grasping, you're not desperate. You don't feel the need to check all the time. You're not insecure about where you stand with that thing. You trust. And you're like, if I get it, that'd be amazing. And if I don't, it's not the end of the world. I'm sure I'll get it someday. I'm sure it'll happen when it's supposed to happen. And to me, that's a better way to exist than to feel like it's not working. Am I doing it right? Something's wrong with me. Those thoughts and emotions feel very, very different. And I want you to be aware of when you're going there throughout the day. And the more you do this work, you'll easily be able to pull yourself out of those patterns. And that's what I love about this work. And that's why I love doing this work. And that's why I'm proud of everybody who decides to do this work, because we are being the living examples of the 4-minute mile, of what it means to practice greatness. The Kobe Bryants, the Muhammad Ali's, the people who did the hard thing, right? They got all the glory, but look at what they had to do behind the scenes. I don't care about the glory. I care about my quality of life. And I don't want to live anxiously anymore. And I don't want to live rehashing pain and disappointment. And I mean, there's so much more to tune into. There's infinite to tune into. And I don't want to tune into the things I used to tune into because it doesn't serve me anymore. So someone asked one question: if I've been stressed for years, can I really shift my energy? Yes. I believe as long as you're living and you're open and willing, you can learn anything. You can teach your body anything. That's what Joe, that was his whole premise. He wanted to show people possibility. Young, old, no matter your cultural background, the language you speak, you can change. Change is for anybody that wants to grab it by the horns and say, bring it, right? Like, I feel like the body is naturally designed to heal. So you're not broken. You just practice something for a long time, and that's called conditioning. And the whole premise of Dr. Joe's work is to recondition, right? So coherence is not a switch that you turn on or off. It's a practice. And every time you choose to regulate instead of react, you are practicing coherence. You are practicing what your body needs in terms of homeostasis to get back into balance. So you're rewriting that pattern. So yes, you can change no matter how long you've been a certain way. Like I said, the stories of transformation on Dr. Joe's YouTube channel, you can't make this stuff up. These are everyday people. At one point in the beginning, I thought they might have been actors, but I was, you know the truth by the way it feels. These are everyday people, young and old, like I said, every cultural background, doing the miraculous because they decided to. They just decided to. And I'm a firm believer that as long as you have breath in your lungs and you have a sane mind and you can make decisions for yourself, you can do this work. Someone else said, what if I can't feel elevated emotions? Wait, what? What if I can't feel elevated emotions consistently? I think that's what they meant. What if I can't feel elevated emotions consistently? I would say just start with small moments. Again, it's a practice and no practice is perfect. The whole point of practice is to really hone your skills, to brush up on the things that you need to brush up on. Everybody's path is different. Everybody's on their own, method to getting there or whatever the case may be. But I don't like to compare myself. That's one of the things too. Like, I'll watch a lot of the stories of transformation, but I never do it to compare because they are them and I am me. And none of us live the same exact life. Even if you're siblings, you don't live the same exact life because you are a completely different being, right? Like, you can have 5 siblings in the same household raised by the same parents, and all 5 of them will have a completely different experience of what it was like to live in that house. Why? Because we all have our own way of expressing, our own purpose, our own perspectives. So it's not about being perfect. It's about just returning to the practice, right? Because I feel like, again, I've been doing this since 2019, I learned about Joe. And I still feel like I'm new to all of this because I still have to remind myself of the basics. I come back and read the books that started it all, right? Third time, and I watch the progressive. I have the intensive. I haven't been to a workshop, but that's on my bucket list. But I also know that you don't have to go to a workshop to heal. You don't have to go to a workshop to get really good. You just have to do the work. If you never go to a workshop, there were people who submitted videos, stories of transformation that never been to a Dr. Joe's workshop, but they still get results. I've gotten results for years. I'm still getting results every day. I feel like the divine talks to me. At least I'm aware of when the divine is speaking to me in a way that's right for me, right? Because I ask it to send me a sign, as Dr. Joe tells you in all the meditations. Ask the divine to send you a sign to let you know it's real. Number one, not that you're asking the divine to prove itself, but I will tell you, people continue to do the work because they start seeing signs and synchronicities. And that's what keeps them like, oh, I feel like God probably wasn't listening to me. And all of a sudden, this song started playing on the radio and boom, that was a synchronicity. Or I saw 1111 across the clock and boom, that was a sign that I needed. So the divine will speak to you. The more you practice, you'll start recognizing how the divine speaks to you. Obviously, it won't be the voice of God. I don't know. The divine will use whatever it needs. For me, I shared last week that 3 songs played back to back while I was sitting inside of Starbucks. And the message in the song had everything to do with what I was meditating on in my meditations that week, what I was intending for. Like, it's like, I almost laugh because I was like, are you kidding me? Like, really? Because I feel like the divine has a sense of humor, and it really knows each and every one of us like like it's the creator of each and every one of us. So it knows how to speak the language of what we'll understand in a way that's just right for us. And that's how I feel like I've been communicated to. So I feel like if you just, don't focus so much on feeling elevated emotions consistently, just take it one day at a time, one meditation at a time, one breath at a time. Slowly, your energy will begin to remember who you really are. And I know that I feel more and more of a conviction for that statement the more I stay consistent with the work. So if you just stay consistent with the work, you will start to feel that inner conviction, that inner knowing that for me, this is the way. And I'm not a religious person. I've been religious at different points in my life. I'm not a religious person. I don't even like to call it spirituality. I'm a truth seeker. And I have a deep respect for all different types of religions and spiritual practices. I do. And I think that's why I respect Dr. Joe, because he gets a lot of his teachings from all of those different types of backgrounds. And then he merges that with science. And I've read a lot of spiritual books, a lot of religious books, um, just out of curiosity. And Joe has clearly as well. And as you go through the chapters with me, you see where he references, and he'll tell you exactly where he got, the breath work, the blessings of the energy centers, certain ancient practices of the heart. He's not trying to take credit for making any of this up. There's none of this is new under the sun. He's basically just he put together his understanding of all of these divine teachings and backed it up with science. Got a bunch of researchers who were on board to say, hey, let's look into this and let's see if there's some truth to this, in a sense that we could actually quantify it and get some data behind it. And so here we are. So yeah, so if there are no other reflections to share, I'm so glad that you all showed up for yourselves, that you allowed me to talk your ear off in this live tonight and share some of my personal reflections. But I definitely want to leave you with this tonight, that if you are feeling disconnected, if you're feeling like you're not doing it right, you're not disconnected, you likely are doing it right. It's just about continuing to develop your practice, continuing to evolve your practice. You're being invited back into your own heart. Your heart wants a relationship with you. It's like, hey, I'm here. I'm taking all your emotional hits. I've just been here the whole time, just little old me. So basically, the field does not respond to your performance, it responds to your presence. So the more you can be present, the more you can be aware of the signal that you are sending out with your thoughts and emotional state. That presence is what lives here in the heart and in the space between your breath and your belief. And the more you tune into it, whew, it will change your life. I'll be back later this week to continue parts 4 and 5. But until then, stay soft, stay centered, and remember, you are the signal. I don't know who needs to hear this, but this is your reminder, and you got this. Bye, guys.